What's up, and welcome everybody to another thrilling edition of the Break Room Podcast.
Yes.
Here we are, Chris and Vin. Some of
Carrying
you,
it.
some of you who follow our show will know. There's normally four of us, but we've been hit with the plague, so we haven't really been able to get a lot of stuff out. The week before that it was Easter, so been a little
hiatus.
while.
We took a hiatus, all right? We
Took a
took
little
hiatus,
sabbatical, a little hiatus.
recharge.
Yeah, but we did miss you guys, and we are, just thrilled for anybody that is following us on this journey. But enough of the preamble and the preliminaries. I'm joined here. Well, I was just going to say my guest host, Vin. What are we talking about today, Vin?
Talking Star Wars. We're bringing it back. We've had a lot of wrestling conversation over the last, few weeks in the lead up to WrestleMania. A lot of good conversation, but then a tremendous letdown across the board.
Yeah.
The fandom lashed out, but I went ahead. I bought myself the new
Oh,
Cody
nice.
Rhodes shirt.
Came in the mail.
Finally came. Yeah, it took like 10 days, which tells me everybody's doing what I'm doing. I'm definitely not alone here in buying the merch. So actually, me and a friend from work wore our shirts. We took a picture together today. Funny enough.
Who's that?
Actually, Joe Melcuri.
Oh, yeah? That's cool.
Not to put anybody's name out there,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
he's a good friend of ours. Big wrestling fan. He was there live in the building. So he was there when the air was completely let out of the room.
Oh, my God.
Pin-
I got to talk to him about that.
Oh, he really says it was pin drop quiet. But anyway,
Yeah.
aside from that, a lot of wrestling conversation we'll definitely revisit
Yes.
next time we're all together. But tonight it's about Star Wars. I feel like we've had a lot of Star Wars news. We've been enjoying, for the most part, Mandalorian this full season. We really haven't talked too much about it. So I feel like we definitely should recap some of our thoughts on the most recent episodes, because I know you had a couple of opinions. We definitely have gotten peeks into the future with the announcements and some of the new developments in the show, so we can feel and see who's actually coming. There's an imminent threat. Can't wait to talk about that. I know Chris would boast himself as our resident Star Wars aficionado.
Oop.
Over Rob, potentially.
Just going to jump in here. Thank you from the dungeon. He let me know that I had a super echo going on right now.
No.
And that was
I don't
actually,
hear it.
that was my fault. No, it was Streamlabs effect for when I do my Jackie Sangria show. I sometimes to fill in the singing, the voice, I'll put the reverb on it. And
I can't wait to hear that back.
sounds a little bit more of a chorus. So yeah, I'm curious what that's going to sound like.
Oh, you hit us with the intro too.
but-
Welcome everybody to the Mr. and Mrs. Wedding and Invitation.
Damask Holdings.
So
We should be in order. Thank you from the dungeon. You're the fucking man. Love you, brother.
yeah, thanks so much. So what did I figured ask you because you definitely had some thoughts. What did you think about the episode before the most recent one? 'Cause
Yes.
I know the most recent one's delivered, but
Well, so
what
let's
were
start
your
with that. So we have episodes 6 and 7 are going to be the topic of discussion for tonight. We are going to get hyped about the finale and talk about a number of other things, but I want to preface this by saying that I don't like being nitpicky. I don't count myself as one of those types of Star Wars fans. I think you would agree, Vin, that I'm very deferential to a lot of things that they do,
you like the most recent trilogy. You were very.
I didn't
deferential
love
to
it.
that.
but I didn't
Yeah,
hate
yeah,
it.
I love
You
it.
know, I'm a
Right.
lot more forgiving than a lot of other Star Wars fans. But
And you're half a contrarian, so it's like if the wind is blowing in a certain direction, you always have the counterpoint anyway. So it's
well,
in
not by
nature.
choice. I'm an anti-contrarian. the wind seems to blow whatever
okay.
way I don't want it to blow. It's not me doing
that's
the
it, yeah,
opposite.
the
It's
wind
the world.
blows the direction Chris doesn't want it to. on
Exactly.
purpose.
Exactly.
I get it. It decides that. It makes that decision.
The universe wants to go against me, so it will.
So yeah, refresh my memory because I kind of actually forget the most recent.
Well, so
that
episode 6,
episode
they
Jack Black.
again, and the other
right?
thing too, I want to say why I don't like throwing out vitriol and angry opinions is because you do have to let things play out. You know, and even so I'll stay, and I hated episode 6, but episode 7
Right.
made it a little bit better. So I'm a little bit
Right.
more forgiving of it, and that's why you do have to let things play out to a degree. But
Absolutely.
episode 6, I'm trying to even remember exactly how it came together, but they go to this planet. Was it Plaisir? Was that what it was
Was that what
called?
the name?
Plaisir 15 or something like that.
Super high tech, hyper
Super,
high tech, futuristic
yeah, very, what's the right word for it? It's like a wealthy,
techno
soft kind of planet, a silk slipper kind of planet where, very hoity-toity,
liberal, as Joe would
yeah, whatever you want
point
to
out.
call it. And I guess Jack Black is there with Lizzo, and
Lizzo.
they are the. I did like his name, Lord Bombarder or whatever, Bombardier. Kind of a quirky character set. I didn't hate that so much, but essentially they go to this planet. They're kind of like redirected there. They like hijack their ship, like, and have it land there, and pretty much say, "Oh, we have a robot problem, and we need your help with these robots because our hands are tied because of whatever." I don't Lord Bombarder. I'm just gonna call him Jack Black. I don't care. Jack
Yeah,
Black used
yeah.
to be an Imperial, and he's not any longer. And because of that, they have all these rules that they must abide by. And so they end up like going down to the basement to talk to Christopher Lloyd, who and Doc from Back to the Future, who's apparently the head of security, and he gives them all this information to go find these robots that are just like wigging out and shooting people or whatever.
Right.
Um, the whole episode made no fucking sense. I'm just gonna come right out and say it made no fucking sense because it ends up being revealed, spoilers, that the reason why these robots were acting up was because Christopher Lloyd was, I guess, they were imbibing in some sort of robot alcohol that had nanomachines that reprogrammed them or something. And it turns out that it was all because of the head of security who sent them to go investigate the problem. So he gave them all the information and tools to find out that it was he himself that was doing it. And you find out that the head of security, Christopher Lloyd, apparently was a separatist, which is
Right.
a what did he say? Has a negative connotation. I forget how he said it. It's a hateful term, and the
It
reason
is used. Yeah.
he says it a certain way. He says that's a what is he? It doesn't matter. Uh, he apparently was programming these robots to go crazy so that I don't know what the fuck. Can you explain it? I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. He sends them to find these robots who are going crazy because he made them go crazy because he wants to save society, and now he's gonna hit this button that blows up society. It didn't make any fucking sense. I don't understand what his motives were to.
Yeah, I agree. Convoluted in story, very, very clear in theme in terms of yeah, all right, it's a star fucker episode. They're getting celebrities on here, which doesn't normally happen for Star Wars. That's one thing I did see people are, criticize whatever.
And I have no qualms about that. I mean,
I love Jack Black. I don't care. I was like, is that Lizzo? Huh,
Actually,
that's
so I do
interesting.
want to mention the
Just
comments here because from the dungeon has a couple of good points. So he said he was apparently a Count Dooku sympathizer, which hey, I
right.
love when they name drop Count Dooku. That's great. But
Going
why did I still? How does that?
so again.
It's total
So
non
again,
sequitur.
I understand what you mean. It's convoluted in its story, but the themes are clear. They're trying to revisit some very particular themes, which are you said robots, and it's not robots. It's the Trade
Droids.
Federation's battle droids. It's separatists. The word separatists and bringing up what the separatists were, the innocence and the the innocuousness of the planet and kind of the pointlessness of that whole thing. I think what they're trying to show more than anything is despite everything that's happened, there's like outlier planets that have not fallen in line under the New Republic. You know what I mean? There's a long history that's led up to that point, and all that hasn't disappeared. And then I think with the reemergence of what's about to happen, they're trying to make sure that they're clear about uh, the things that happened during the Clone Wars still have a major impact even post all of the fall of the Jedi Order, the fall of the Republic. It's still this huge there's still a lot of leftovers there. And even though that stuff wasn't talked about in the more recent movies, those are the themes that they're drawing on more and more and more. It's all about what happened back then and how it's tying into now, how the Mandalorians and their past is catching up with them as they try to rejoin each other, like we saw in the new episode. So yes,
Yeah.
I agree. That episode convoluted, very dumb. Of course, it's great to see Doc Brown. It's fun to see Jack Black, and they just used it as an opportunity to, again, show the battle droids and I think remind people of those things because they've been so out of view for so long. Especially if you didn't watch the Clone Wars anime, they're kind of you're like, holy shit, I remember what those are. You don't maybe know what exactly, but you're like, oh, those were in like the Phantom Menace. I remember that. So I think they're just trying to innocently and innocuously remind people of certain things, so that way when they do the grand finale, it's like it makes sense. It's like, oh
Right.
shit,
And
okay.
I'm sure they're also setting the stage. I mean, that's why I don't totally hate the episode entirely. I'm sure Plaisir 15 or whatever it was called will come back into play. They said, you are now our allies and we're indebted to you and you're welcome here or whatever. So I'm sure they'll come back to that planet and maybe that'll be like a safe haven when they need it most or something like that.
Also, the other thing we're hearing a lot too is like what do you do with former Empire sympathizers, you can't just execute them all. You're not going to have like the Nuremberg trials and just execute everybody who was a part of it.
Right.
Like
Well,
it
it's like
lived
the
it
Civil War with the South. We had the
Yeah,
what was it called after the Civil War, where they rebuilt the rebuilding or whatever they called it. It was
Reconstruction. It was
the
Reconstruction. Yeah.
reconstruction. Yeah.
So yeah, they're going through that, and like they're by doing that again. A lot of this is trying to help inform the three movies that a lot of people didn't like. So it's trying to tell you like, oh, these four, first the spy that's inside of the New Republic's military,
Oh
and
yeah.
then
She's
Jack Black, who's like, I really, he was just blowing with the wind. He was whatever direction the wind blows, Jack Black goes. So that in Star Wars, having read it, there's always those types. There's always the people who just blow with the wind and try to take advantage of the situation. There are the loyalists, the people who are still loyal to the Empire. They're Sith loyalists, and then there's the New Republic. The New Republic isn't as I think one thing is like they're trying to say that the New Republic is very fragile. It doesn't have the Jedi Order to help keep order the way that it did in the past. The New Republic was held up by the Jedi Order in the past, so it would make sense that it would devolve
was
in the First Order.
enforced. A lot of the rules were enforced by the Jedi.
Right.
Yeah, and the other thing too they're trying to show, I think, is like a lot of the red tape and the like the technicalities that different planets and cultures have, because as we saw in the following episode, Grand Admiral Thrawn, it's finally happening. We've been talking about it for weeks. Grand Admiral Thrawn is a phenomenal character, and he is a master. He's a master at finding these little like technicalities that different nations or planets or whatever you want to call it have, and exploiting them. So as we heard with Plaisir, we're not allowed to have a standing army, and we're not allowed to do this, and that, and that's why we need the Mandalorians to do it. So they were able
Shadow Council.
Yeah, so I get it. The other thing that was kind of a gripe for me that I've come around on a little bit, I just didn't like the way that Mando handed over the Darksaber to Bo.
Right.
I get why they did it. They had to get the saber off of him, so it was in her hands, because in the following episode, he's captured, and she has it, and she could use it to escape, so I get it. I do remember thinking when he was captured by that alien thing, and she saved him, how he was disarmed, and how she saved him, and I thought, maybe that will... So they did put that little clue there that might happen, but it's like, if he knew that he was disarmed, you would have thought in the moment he would have given her the Darksaber he held on to it so he can give it to her in front of all the Mandalorians. So I get it.
Right.
It just seemed a little plot convenient, but I'm not gonna nitpick that too much. The only other thing too I
No.
want to say with the head of security in episode 6 and Christopher Lloyd, it just didn't make sense because his motive, if his motive was like fuck these robots, everybody's too dependent on them, just like if you drew parallels to modern day, these kids are too dependent on their phones, everybody's too dependent on technology, we're growing soft. If he said something like that as his motives, it would have made sense. But he was like, no, I want the robots to be a part of our society. So it just didn't make any fucking sense. It was a total non
Convoluted.
sequitur. I feel like they dropped the ball a little bit there. But the following episode, anything you want to talk about episode 6? I feel like that we covered most of it.
That's it. That's really I think there were themes that I saw that I recognize. You know what I mean? And
There's
I say,
themes.
okay,
They're setting the table
I'll-
for a couple of things. They're
I'll
calling
accept.
back.
I don't like burned. I don't like burnt episodes. I don't like where it's just like because we wait a long time for this shit. It's only 8 episodes. We're not getting 10 anymore like we used to with other shows. It's like, wow, you're really just gonna take a whole episode and just kind of fluff it or make it like a convoluted mess with no clear intent. I definitely see that. I don't. But I'm just like, I don't have the energy. I'm just like, all right, cool. Like, let's see this whole fucking thing. Let's see this thing play out. Because you know what I remember the most about like the end of season 2? I really couldn't tell you a lot about it, but I can tell you when Luke arrived. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we're building towards that kind of stuff, and that's why I watch this. So I can't wait for the finale. And the last episode was really cool.
It was,
Really,
yeah.
a lot of really good shit going on in there.
So let's talk about a couple of things that happened on that. For one, the man, I'm so bad with names. I got a splitting headache right now. So
Paz.
well, not well, yeah. So Paz Vizsla,
Paz Vizsla,
is
yes.
he's
Badass.
sacrificed himself. He's a badass. I was very upset about that because he was actually of all the Mandalorian characters that they've been building, kind of the secondary and tertiary characters. He was one that kind of stood out.
I really thought they were gonna like. I didn't know if they were gonna go all the way and kill him. I thought they might capture both of them and make the mistake of having them together, and then Mando and Paz would
escape
be
together.
freed or
That
fight
would have been cool.
some shit. But
I get
nah,
that they kind of need
wanted
to
to
kill somebody. They need to show that there's stakes.
right.
And
They
in order
wanted
for
to
it to
show the
mean
guard.
something, it's got to be a character that kind of matters. You can't just always kill red shirts like in Star Trek. So I get it. I was just bummed about it. He had some story this past
He
season.
went out, dude.
They saved
is the
they
way.
saved his child Ragnar from the dragon
Right.
earlier
right.
in the season. He's always kind of been like the litmus test. Like he's always ready to
Hey, you! I'll fucking fight you right now.
Yeah, exactly. Like you have to kind of prove yourself by wrestling with this guy, like
Right,
Mando
right.
had in the past. And he came out in support. He was one of the driving forces of unifying the tribes of the Mandalorians because Bo made her all appeal to her sect and Mando's sect. What are they called? Mando's
Death Watch.
the Death Watch. So they're a
Yeah,
little bit
Death
more
Watch.
devout to the way.
This is the way.
And he was, the first person to come to Bo-Katan's side and say, they helped save my child, so I'm with them.
And yeah, turns the tide in
So that-
Bo's favor.
That was a bummer to see him go out, and it was so badass how he did. He just fucking took them all out, shuts the door. He's like, no, this is the way. His
This is the
Gatling
way.
gun was melting from overheating.
Then he just fucking uses it, kills a couple more guys. Speaking of the guys that he's killing, that they're very interesting because these are like Beskar armored clone trooper. Maybe
Yeah.
not clone trooper. So that's a wrong word to use. We don't know if they're
Well, they're kind of-
stormtroopers. If we don't know, like there's a difference. There is a difference between
That's
a
true. We don't know if they're clones
trooper
or not.
and a stormtrooper. So definitely they're definitely not clone troopers from the Clone Wars, but the armor and the fact that they stayed on Mandalore. There's actually a Empire presence or First Order, whatever you want to call it, a presence on Mandalore where they're like, "What is this place? Where the fuck are we? We're on
Yeah.
a base. We didn't know this was here." And they've been mining, Beskar, doing God knows what with it. but I did call it knockoff because it's not being forged by the armorer who's really knows how to work the steel, as it were. So I still say that's weaker armor compared to the Mandalorians or Din. We got to start calling him Din by his name. I feel like
Yeah.
we've been calling him Mando for so long.
Mando.
Now, hey, Mando.
Well, hold on. So, did they end up finding the forge? Because that was a whole deal, right? Was they were going there to find the forge, and then that they found the tribe of Mandalorians that were already there on the planet with that big flying ship. They got attacked by the giant worm.
Right.
So they never got to the forge, right? Or did they?
Correct. Not that I know of. I don't think so, and I don't know if that base is built around the forge, but
I forget if they actually
we
got to the
haven't-
forge or not. Because they were talking about it. They were saying like the forge that we've been using is this tiny thing in comparison to the forge
real
of
forge.
Mandalore. Which makes me wonder too, like if there was this Imperial outpost, like why didn't they go into the ruined city of Mandalore? Why weren't they using the forge? You know, I don't know. These are bigger questions, but I did love how Moff Gideon, Giancarlo Esposito is just like, these are the newest version of the, he's the next generation.
So
hyping it
yeah,
up.
that I get. Yeah, we kind of skipped to the past thing. We brought him up, but going back, like that episode, a lot happened in that episode. It was paced like very quickly. That we were like, the Mandalorians agreed that they were gonna get together. Like, they found the other Mandalorians first, the one on the fucking boat. Then they got attacked.
What's
Then
his name? Fox or something?
I don't remember. I really don't remember well everybody's name yet.
And I do want to mention, because the comments are here, from the dungeon said, just as we move away from the paths topic, he said, yeah, they killed him and his toy didn't even come out yet. So that's a good point. They killed him before his toy got out. And then he said, do you think the armor is going to betray them, or is it going to be Sasha Banks, who is the other?
I've been seeing that more and more.
It would make no sense if the armor is a traitor. It would make no fucking sense. Absolutely no sense.
We're too we're too traumatized by Game of Thrones. I think we're always looking for the dagger of sorts. Like, what is like the big betrayal, or who is the spy? There's definitely a spy. I don't know if it's the leader of the other unit, the one that agreed to like unify with Bo, who seems a little sketchy.
What's his name? It's like Ive Fox or something.
Yeah, I don't know if I would trust him at all. I think he's the clear and present one. I don't know, but the armor, I feel like what is the backing behind it? I get, oh, she's the only one that survived. Why did she survive? Blah 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 blah. But I'm just like, how does that further anything that they've done? She's like the anchor point for all. That is not the way. Okay, so someone who does not go the way can't be preaching this is the way and then undo it all. But
that would be really playing the long game. And here's the thing: could they do that? Sure. But I don't, like, you have to have a motive. And if you're going to tell me that the armor was, for decades harboring this plan out, to fuck over the Mandalorians that she's been,
trying to bring together in a way, is secretly forging Beskar steel armor for like a couple decades or whatever.
Right. It would, the plot, it would just, you'd have to really, it would be a stretch.
Oh, there you go. Dungeon says his name is Axe Wolves.
Axe Wolves. There you go.
So there you go. Yeah, his name alone just tells me this guy's probably going to fuck you over.
He's got an Imperial kind of look to him, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And, the Empire and
Wolves.
Plagueis and them were known for hiring, well, not Plagueis, but they were known for hiring Mandalorians, to do their bidding. So it would not be new that, like I said, I thought that when they talked about the breaking out of Moff Gideon from the starship there, they said, oh, that's Beskar steel. Mandalorians did this. And then it's kind of revealed maybe that these these stormtrooper Beskar armored guys did it. They haven't said it, but you could assume it would make the most sense, but maybe not. Maybe we still haven't gotten the full story. Maybe it was that unit of Mandalorians who I just think are not trustworthy.
Let's take I
Oh, go
suppose
ahead.
let's take it like an inventory right now of the factions of Mandalorians that we've seen so far. So we have Death's Watch, which is Mando's crew,
Right,
Din's
right.
crew, the Armor, um,
There's all
Paz.
they're all like clans. So
Right.
there's
So you have the
House
Death's Watch.
Kreese, which is
You have
Bo.
Bo-Katan's group, House Kreese,
House
which is like
Kreese.
Sasha Banks is in there, whatever her name is in the show. Axe Wolves, I guess. Um, then you have the Mandalorians that were actually on Mandalore when they got there, that they found in this last episode, that were in some kind of weird, like, ice skating pirate
Well,
ship
yeah,
type of thing.
they were loyal to Bo before like the fall.
Right.
Before the fall of Mandalore, they were loyal to House Kreese.
Well, most of them were, right? Because Mandalore was ruled by House Grease. Is that
Yes,
correct?
they were the royalty before the best my memory before Darth Maul like ascends to the throne and like splits them in half. It's
Gotcha.
like something to that degree.
We'll
He
consider
wields the
them
dark
their own
saber.
crew though, because they've been just sitting on Mandalore for however many decades, while House Kreese and Bo have been doing their own thing, right? So you
So
have
yeah,
those three.
the best way to look at it from what I'm seeing here is you look at them as clans. So Elder, Kreese, Rook, Saxon, Vizsla, and Ren.
Hmm.
Those are the clans or family names, I assume.
Ren.
And Ren, yeah, Wren, not
Okay,
Bren, Ren.
gotcha.
And then Death Watch was something that would bring those houses together during the Clone Wars. That's how it was. So you
Gotcha.
look at the smaller factions, I guess, as the clans themselves, and then Death Watch as something that I'm sure they joined and then dropped out of.
And then on top of that, now you have the Imperials, who are using all of the Mandalorian technology and Beskar steel and stuff like that. So wouldn't exactly call them Mandalorians, but um, that was what Moff Gideon
Gideon.
was saying. He's like the next generation of them, so they're their own group. You have the wild ape men that were actually on Mandalore that attacked them earlier in the episode,
Right.
like the cavemen, kind of Neanderthal looking guys. I'm
Right,
just
right,
trying to
right.
think of like the different forces at play here on or around the planet of Mandalore.
Well, at this point, you could probably look at them all as one technically, but most likely
Sure.
there's definitely someone that will betray them. The most important faction, or the most important thing now, is that they showed like the Shadow Council, and they showed us Hux. They showed us, tell me, what's the guy's name? The right hand man to Thrawn.
They showed Commander Pelion, who
Hellion.
was standing in place and speaking on behalf of Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Mhm.
Moff Gideon was kind of saying like, "Let's get goalie, let's go. I need this, this, and that. I need like what do you say, 3? What's the name of the
The
Emperor's like?"
Star Destroyers. Oh, the guards. The Palayan, Hellion,
Yes, yeah,
Hellion
something with a
guards.
P. Yeah, Praetorian? No, that might be.
Praetorian.
I think that's Roman, the Praetorian Guard. I think that's actually
It's
what
very
they.
close.
So you had the guys in red that ended up killing Paz. I should know it. I should know the word. But the Palace Guards. I
Yes.
need like a Star Destroyer and like 2 ships and whatever else he asked for. And he was kind of
Praetorian. They're
saying
called Praetorians.
they are Praetorians. Huh.
Praetorian Guard. Yeah.
All right. Got it. Hell yeah. I thought that was Roman. Um, so he's asking for all this stuff, and he's saying, "Well, where's Grand Admiral Thrawn? You know, he's not here. I don't see Thrawn around." Which I haven't been following Star Wars Rebels. I think it is that has Thrawn on it,
Rebels does have Thrawn. Yeah.
which I haven't watched. I've read all the
Gotta
Thrawn
watch it.
books, but I haven't
Yeah.
watched that. So my understanding is like he disappears with like the Jedi guy, Ezra. They were like banished or something like that in Star Wars Rebels. But does that takes place before this, right?
Right. That's all. That's basically the lead up. That's Filoni used that as the lead up into what Mandalorian was going to be. So you see Bo-Katan, you see, you see some of the people. Of course, you see Ahsoka. All the people we're about to see in Ahsoka are from Rebels. They showed the. So we just had Celebration. Star Wars Celebration was what, last week. So they revealed the real life actors for the Rebels cast. They have like Elizabeth, Mary Elizabeth or whatever her name is. They have
That's Mickelson.
Celine. Yeah, they have yeah.
Will
So
be
that's
Thrawn.
who's playing Thrawn. So he voiced Thrawn in Rebels, and
Does this what's the name of the actress? Ahsoka.
we're the worst with names, huh?
We are. We're really
We've
like
just been
we're
like
just too stoned. I know.
and
That's what I'm exactly what I'm thinking. We're way too.
uh.
I got a headache and we're stoned. So this is how stoners talk to each other, and
Just
we're
call
getting
her
old.
Ahsoka.
Let's give it another
You can
like
call
40
her
years.
Ahsoka.
We're just gonna be like, fucking.
Who's that?
No. You know the
What?
name of the actress, the one that plays Ahsoka.
I know, but when you say who is that, my brain immediately shuts down.
I know you
Rosario
can't think of it,
Dawson.
right?
Rosario
Rosario Dawson.
Dawson.
Does she do the voice for Ahsoka on Rebels?
No,
Okay.
no. They met though. They met at Celebration. There's actually a great picture of them together, of real life Anakin and Clone Wars Anakin and
Huh.
Clone Wars Ahsoka and real life Ahsoka. Yeah, that was a
Interesting.
cool
All
picture.
right. Well, it's fine because she's younger in that anyway. So, and I know we're a little all over the place. We're just like fucking so amped, and
Well, when you're recapping that episode, they just revealed
there's so
so
much
much so
stuff that
quickly,
happened. Yeah.
and you're
So
like, it's
okay, back to
38
your
minutes.
point.
What
The
the
Shadow
fuck?
Council, right?
Right.
Commander Pelion. He's Thrawn's right hand man. If you read all of the Thrawn books, the first one being Heir to the Empire,
Heir
which is
to the
what they
Empire.
refer to him as, which I love. Um, if you read all of the Thrawn books, the character of Thrawn is mostly shown or told through the point of view of Commander Pelion. I think he's a commander. I forget his rank. It changes at different points, but
Mm.
you learn about Thrawn through Pelion's eyes for the most part.
Okay. You never get
Um,
in Thrawn's head.
Thrawn's not a well in the prequel books that come out later that are canon. I do believe you it's told through Thrawn's perspective, if I remember correctly. But
That's
even
cool.
then, a lot of
Okay.
those books are often told through somebody else. Actually, no, yeah,
Yeah.
even in the prequel books, I forget the name of the guy, of course, but it's like pretty much like a Missouri like freaking corn farmer who is like in the Imperial Army. So he's just like a boy from the middle of nowhere. And Thrawn is mostly told through his perspective as well. So Thrawn is a character that, for the most part, is referred to in the third person from somebody else's perspective. Commander
Okay.
Pelion is the one that you learn about Thrawn through. You
He's
know,
observed, and he's a complex character, so I would say it's
the way that
probably
Thrawn is introduced to you is kind of Thrawn super smart. Nobody ever believes him, and then he always just ends up being like 100% correct, and everybody just ends up looking like a dick and be like, "Oh wow!" And then they eventually kind of like understand this guy's a fucking genius.
well.
So
That was happening in the Shadow Council because
Moff Gideon
Gideon's
is already
really calling
undermining
him
him.
out. Where is he? Where I don't see
Yeah,
him.
where's Grand Admiral
Basically
Thrawn?
calling him out, and now that's usually a sign where I feel like we're gonna see him.
But
I don't
they're
want to
all
cut you off.
aligned in the sense though too, because even when Moff
What?
Gideon says no, they are because when he says, "Well, there's Mandalorians," you even see Pelion is like, "Oh,
Yeah, but
Mandalorians?" Like, "Oh,
classic dickhead dark side shit. They're always jockeying for position. They're always fucking each other over. That's why the Sith can't win. That's why the dark side really can't win. It's just a common theme. Their arrogance and what makes them strong is also what makes them weak every time. But it's they always seem disaligned. Like I think back to when Darth Vader enters the room in the first movie, and it's like the guy's talking shit about the Force. He's just like, your old ways, your old religion is dead, and blah blah blah. And he just takes control of the situation by wielding the Force. And I'm always, it's like that's just such a common thread with them. And now listening to Plagueis, it's like I'm not going to skip to that.
Well, yeah, we'll get to the extended
common
universe in a
theme
bit.
with them is they can't ever march in the same direction altogether.
Well, to a degree, the problem is they can, and when they do, it's really bad because then everybody
Right.
falls in line under
Under
Vader,
a real
right.
leader.
But
You need a real
inevitably
leader.
at the top, there's always that, that's what always is their their biggest strength, in that they could all unify behind some asshole, or rather that they can't, is also the biggest weakness. But
Yeah.
so back to the point of the Shadow Council. Who else was on that? We had Moff Gideon.
Interesting. We saw Hux, which is General Hux's father, who is actually the actor's
Assumed
real
father.
brother.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's his real brother. I saw a real tweet about that. Yeah, so it's pretty much confirmed. Yeah, he's his father. I believe that was the case.
And Hux was one of the few good characters that came out of that last trilogy.
Yeah, refresh my memory. Isn't Hux the spy for the fucking
I don't remember if he was a full-blown... I don't think he was a spy, but Hux...
Or at the end, he backstabs
Kylo.
So,
at the end, if you remember, like
he just hates Kylo.
He like betrays the Empire to some degree. He gives them some kind of info or something like that. And they say something to the extent of like a thank you, not exactly thank you, but he's like, I didn't do this for you. I'm just telling you this to fuck over Kylo Ren. Like, he doesn't,
So back to our earlier point, they can never march in the same direction.
Right.
Fucking each other over.
But I thought Hux was a pretty good character and an actor. He was very emotive.
He's a great, I do like him. I like him in Ex Machina. He's a good actor for sure. It's never a knock on people's acting. Anything in my criticism of those movies has nothing to do with the acting.
My whole point has always been there's been a few. Okay, so From the Dungeon is confirming, yep, he was a spy, and also he's raised a couple of other good points that I want to come back to in a second. But I like that it's in a sense kind of retconning. Now Hux is obviously something that they're building on, some IP that they're building on from the last trilogy that they did. There was a couple of other guys that they showed on that Shadow Council, but we don't really know who they were. I don't think. There was like another guy they kept showing, but we didn't know his name. So we had that. We had the Shadow Council, Paz Vizsla. The other thing that I loved, it was actually kind of at the start of the episode, was what's Carl Weathers' character's name? Whatever it is, Mando.
Hey, Mando. Magister fucking what's that called now?
Oh, God, our memory, we're just getting
Butcher. Well, they just changed his name too because he keeps getting these.
He's a high magistrate. Yeah, he's a high magistrate now. Carl Weathers, he produces the battle droid. I forget the code. Rob would know if he was here. They produced the battle droid and they pretty much stripped away its whatever circuits that make it go crazy, and now it's pretty much a vehicle for
IG-11.
IG-11, yeah. So it's now pretty much a vehicle for Baby Yoda to ride along in, which I loved. He's just like, yes, 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 yes. He just keeps hitting the yes button.
Yes. I don't like this. No. Get out. No. No. Yes.
And then when Paz and Wolves were fighting each other on the ship, how he just gets between them. He's like, no. And they're just like, oh, okay. I love that. You know what? It makes it so that Grogu can be more mobile, because this little, these tiny little feet and the way he walks, he's always just kind of skipping around. He could jump. They've already established now that he does that big jump
leap. He's got the Jedi leap. I really need to see him though unleash his ability to use the Force beyond the gimmick, and I think that's what they're ready to unload.
They keep playing with it in the background. He does little things.
Oh, it's there.
He helped Lizzo play in that game of ball.
One criticism here would be, in that moment, you see Din through, like Grogu can see Din through the doors. He's completely fucked. There's nothing they can do, and a lot of the times that's usually when like a Force wielder, it just comes out of them. They almost can't even stop it because it's so emotional for them that they just and I feel like people expected that to happen, and they're just saving it. They want that moment to be bigger than just the episode before the final episode.
Yeah.
It's gonna be like Luke coming in and unleashing his lightsaber like we've never seen ever, but we've always wanted. Like we never got to see Luke do what he did in that hallway to those fucking troopers, like we've always wanted, and it finally happened. And grown men are crying because they're watching Luke be Luke Skywalker for honestly the first time on screen. Because in a lot of the other stuff, he wasn't as powerful. It wasn't as visually appealing as you thought it could be.
Yeah, you're seeing an old Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, so now with Grogu, I feel like his power, it needs to. Now we need to see it. Now,
you know, it's interesting though, because I didn't even realize it, but you're absolutely right. Like in that climax where Din is separated and all the shit's going down, Grogu just faded into the background. They were focusing on Bo-Katan and how and Paz and all the other stuff. So I guess
it's
was
on purpose. It's on purpose. You know, it'll come to a head. That's obviously
they're not even off the planet yet. The episode ended with them leaving just cutting out of the room, so they still have to gun it.
Grogu's just gonna be like, yes.
He's gonna keep saying no. They're gonna be like, he's gonna be like, wait, where is he?
No. Yeah, definitely. Like, I think that's, and unfortunately, it may be the sacrifice of Grogu for Din again. In the way that we didn't get it when Luke arrived. Luke arrived and kind of saved the scene. He saved Grogu and Din, and everything was good because they were under the gun. I don't think we're gonna get that this time. I think Grogu getting captured almost seems inevitable.
Oh man, how do you?
I
don't want anybody captive anymore. I'm tired of people being fucking captive and kidnapped, and that's the problem. Though, is if you don't have that, you don't have the sense of urgency. So.
And why have a movie?
I'm just tired of seeing Mando get bitched out. I mean, in the beginning of the season, he got fucking totally caught by that little spider alien thing that caught him in the cage. Now he's caught again. Like, why? Mando. Like, I feel like he's coming off a little weak this season. I want to see more.
They gotta. Well, also that there may be an opportunity because of Thrawn appearing where Gideon will be distracted by Thrawn and whatever happened. I think that there's a lot at play. The key is though, it's fucking really exciting because I think everyone's anticipating a huge moment because we've been building for a while now with Book of Boba, Mando, and now Ahsoka coming and Thrawn, and now this movie being announced at Star Wars Celebration. Something big has to really pop off to drive that sense of urgency and to make sure the rest of this makes sense. Why would Ahsoka come out of her hiding or whatever the hell is going on? What's going to drive Ahsoka out of hiding? Grogu missing, Grogu captured, Thrawn's reemergence, and the First Order's appearance. I think with the finale of Mandalorian season 3, it's a real kickoff point for this huge. I would say if you included everything, if you went from, let's say, the end of Clone Wars, the animated series, Rebels, Mando, Ahsoka, whatever the movie's going to be, Book of Boba, we're coming to the final act potentially of a really big payoff, which hopefully, again, helps inform this trilogy because now we have the new trilogy coming. I don't know if you want to talk about that. I know we got some comments. I think we should kind of go back to the comments here.
Yeah, because From the Dungeon is doing God's work right now.
I wanted to
correcting.
Well, here, Death Watch. I did want to highlight that. I saw that earlier. It wasn't Death Watch, Darth Maul's group. And while, yes, this is the story, it went Death Watch, known as Kierstad, is a Mandalorian terrorist splinter group of warriors that opposed the pacifist government. It was that was led by the Krees during the Clone Wars. So they were a splinter group away from Bo-Katan's family because they felt that Bo-Katan's family was placating the Empire, which they
did, and she owns that too.
Unwittingly, they didn't realize it was the Empire. It wasn't yet revealed. It was the Republic. It was the old Republic, but whatever. So then Maul's Shadow Collective it absorbed Death Watch because Death Watch went out, splintered off, and yeah, Darth Maul had something called the Shadow Collective, and he used Death Watch and the Collective to take over Mandalore. Yeah, so that's that whole
Interesting.
story.
So then another question that he had was, did you guys hear that they want to make a Mandalorian movie, culminate the Ahsoka story, the Book of Boba? I mean, I think that's ultimately going to be what the play is. May not even
It's
be.
announced. It's announced. It's in the books. Like Dave Filoni is out there doing press because of Celebration.
Yeah,
It's not written. It's not till like 2025. It's not being shot for a couple of years, but it's imminent. That's and I think Dave Filoni's the guy. We've been talking about him for, I mean, geez, ever since we started this show and before then.
well,
He's
and
the
it's also the
steward.
story of all these various. They're doing a really good job with character building these various factions. Because I mean, when we were talking about all the factions that play amongst the Mandalorians, and um, then you have uh Carl Weathers and what's the name of their planet? Freaking
You keep asking
Navarro.
me like I
I
have it. There
know.
you go.
We're
There
like
you
we're
go.
literally are we're
Two
aging as we
old
get
grumpy
two
men.
old men that have no memory anymore.
What was that?
Navarro. So you have the planet of
I know, I know.
Navarro and all of them, and that's actually the Mandalorian stronghold right now. Then you also have Boba Fett on Tatooine, kind of everything going on with him, and then you have Ahsoka. So you have all of these different forces at play
Right.
that are going to come together to
Wait.
fight this big threat, which is the Empire again, and whether it's Moff Gideon now or Grand Admiral Thrawn later. That's what made the original Star Wars so great, was because you have a princess from a planet that was blown up, and a smuggler, from this area, and Lando, and all these other,
Hey.
and Luke, and you have these groups of people that somehow, these misfits in a sense, who don't fit into this world that the Empire is trying to create, joining together and overcoming that. So I am
Also,
really
don't.
looking forward to it.
Funny enough, my cousin Joe is playing it right now. Uh, he's playing
Fallen Order.
Fallen Order, which Cal from the game is rumored to potentially make, real life appearances in some upcoming stuff. Because I mean, I don't know how that would work though. Fallen Order is Order 66. Cal, it depends how much the time jump between Fallen Order and this current game is. I think there's a big gap, might be 10 plus years.
Right,
I
and now
also
you
think
also have EA getting involved into the mix, because that's their. I don't know how much
well,
control over that character they
EA is
have.
only the publisher. Everything is in that game, I believe, counted as lore and approved by Disney. I want to say, like, it's an official prop. It's not just like, oh, we let them license the game and have fun with it. I think it
Yeah.
is something that might find its way into what we're seeing in a way. But it'd be interesting. I don't necessarily think it's essential, but they did a really good job with that game, and I'm definitely excited for this upcoming one. This is gonna be a lot of fun. And you also didn't even get to meet all the people from Rebels. Once you get to meet the people from Rebels, there's a lot of good characters
I
in
was
there.
thinking about I'll
Kate,
finally watch that. You know.
just make I gotta say, season one is so adolescent. It's like you could watch it in the background just to kind of get an idea of who is who, because that whole season's kind of bullshitty.
Right.
But with the appearance of Darth Vader in season two, or even in the finale of one, I think I forget. It's like it really takes off, and Kanan is a Jedi survivor, and he trains Ezra Bridger, a young Force sensitive kid, and it's kind of their whole story. It's just kind of this group of misfits. Sabine Wren, who's a former Mandalorian, who goes off with the group, and yeah, it was a fantastic story, and it it just has that great Star Wars lore that, because it's animated and it's longer, the books include it. There's just like a deeper level that some of the movies and even the TV show can't always hit, but when you have like really extended, long storytelling, they could get really deep into it. I've noticed with the Bane books, now being listening to Plagueis, it's like there's just such little details of the universe that get included in the storytelling that I really find that's why I'm drawn to Star Wars. I'm drawn to it for a lot of different reasons, and it's not just the Jedi and the Sith or the lightsabers. There's like a deeper thing going on that is very, very, very good and expressed well in Rebels because that's also done by Filoni. So you can
Well,
trust that.
and also Thrawn is originally a character created by Timothy Zahn, and
Right.
we've mentioned the Thrawn trilogy. So I want to, for anybody that's reading, if you want some really good Star Wars reading or listening, because the audiobooks are phenomenal. As Vin is discovering
Highly
with the
recommend.
audiobooks, you get the sound effects of lightsabers and blasters and starships. All those sound
It's
effects that you
filled
hear in the movies, you get in the audiobooks. They're throughout, and they're not
when
annoying. It just
right.
sounds natural, and the voice actor Mark Thompson is so good. He sounds like it's not the same guy. It's not the same guy as that does the Plagueis books.
Ego.
That's another
Ego.
guy who's also really good.
Ego Damask.
I think Drew Carpenter, maybe. But
Is that who does the Plagueis one?
either that or he's the author of that. But
So the
the
crazy thing
audiobooks
to
are great.
me
Well, I just
about
wanted
Heir
to
to
say
the
what
Empire.
the Thrawn books were for anybody that wants to listen to them.
Tell me when were they released? Just start
Oh, they
there.
were like 80s or 90s.
1991.
Yeah.
That's how far back this lore in Star Wars goes. It's not some new.
And
Oh,
it's
we
no
just.
longer canon too, these books. They used to be you know,
Are you
allowed to be
sure?
canon. Yeah, oh yeah, the original Thrawn trilogy, great as it is no longer canon. It's now considered Star Wars Legends because it's a whole other story with Luke and
Right.
Leia and Han and the original
Right.
gang. And as Rob would agree if he was here, this story, this trilogy is way better than the trilogy that we got by Disney. This is such a good story. So the first one is called Heir to the Empire.
Mm-hmm.
Book 2 is then called Dark Force Rising, and then book 3 is called The Last Command. So it's a trilogy. It's where the Thrawn character is introduced. They were canon, and then when Disney purchased Star Wars, they made all of these books, a bunch of them, the Plagueis book included. They're now considered Star Wars Legends, which means like, hey, we respect these books, but they're no longer part of the official canon.
We
But
can't
that's
follow its story plot points and tell our story, basically.
right, because this story with Thrawn here that I just said the 3 books couldn't work
Which,
because they have
it,
the new
if
trilogies.
everyone complains, oh, Disney shouldn't have, but George Lucas should have made this shit back in 1997 then. Because what the fuck? You're
Well,
sitting on all this great shit, and it took Dave Filoni to come out and be like, we should probably do this. Like,
well,
why did
that's
we
the whole
not?
thing. It's such a testament to this story that even though the character or whatever the story was made non-canon, they recognized that he was a solid enough character that they found a way to weave him back into the fabric and make him official canon. And
Right.
I'm telling you people out there, man, Thrawn is such a solid character and he's going to be such a good bad guy.
Yes.
Um
A
after
worthy adversary.
Yeah. So after the Thrawn trilogy, the 3 books that I just read off, there was another 2 books. Um, it was called Spectre of the Past and Vision of the Future,
Mm.
and this duology was it was called the Hand of Thrawn. So you have the Hand of Thrawn is these 2 books, Spectre of the Past, Vision of the Future. They're sequel to the other 3 books. They're also no longer canon. Um, but then after that, now we have stories of Thrawn that have been written by the same author that are now canon.
He returned to write these new
He
books,
returned to
correct?
write these books. So you have there's kind of like 2 different anthologies. So you have it's just called Thrawn.
Thrawn.
Easy enough. I'm mentioning all this because it gets confusing to know. Like if you want to get into all this, it's like what's the first book that you read, right? So you do it in the order that I told you. The first three, then those second two. They're no longer canon. So now you have Thrawn. And then I don't know the order exactly, but you have Thrawn Treason and Thrawn Alliances.
So you listen to these, correct?
Listen to all of them.
So I was
These
gonna
are
say, like,
canon.
you've never heard Thrawn's voice from Rebels, I
No.
guess.
No.
I'm
Yeah.
wondering what your opinion will be when we see
His
and
voice
hear
is
him.
great in the audiobooks. It's perfect. In my mind's eye, he better sound like this because it's perfect. So we'll see. But
Ah,
very imperious or imperial. You
right.
know, like
Not
um
Higo Damask, but
Ego Damask. So those are the Thrawn prequels, and
you
then
should make that your fucking name online.
Ego Damask. I've actually seen that in a game I was playing. Somebody was Ego Damask.
Re-
There's
yeah.
another 3 books I just want to mention that go back even further into Thrawn's origins on his planet of Chiss or wherever they're from.
That's his race, right? The
He's a
Chiefs.
Chiss. I forget the planet that they're from off the top of my head because I have dementia. But
Let
so
me
we
use
have
the internet.
you have Thrawn Ascendancy,
Rentor.
Rentor. Then you have Thrawn Ascendancy Book 2, The Greater Good, and then you have Thrawn Ascendancy Book 3, Lesser Evil, which I haven't read yet actually. Those are like young Thrawn, and they talk about like the culture of his people. Because his name isn't just Thrawn, his name is Mithron Naruto, and they have like a
I
whole
see that here.
nomenclature system, first, middle, last name, and his middle name is pretty much Raw. So
That's raw.
anyway, Thrawn is a very
Myth
solid
Raw
character.
Naruto.
Highly recommend all of these books. I'm going to be giving away, I don't know how, but a free audio book credit to Audible to one of our lucky followers. Maybe,
Oh,
you know
sweet.
what? Maybe we'll
announce
get one
that next
from the
Friday.
dungeon. We'll do one
Well,
next Friday,
that's
but you know what? From the dungeon, we'll talk after this. You're getting a free audio book, buddy. Whatever one of these Thrawn books that you didn't already read or listen to. But yeah,
That's
those
good.
are the Thrawn books in the outside world. You've been doing the Plagueis book.
The Plagueis book is sick. It's such a great prequel to the prequel movies, to the first episode 1, 2, and 3. The knowing Plagueis and just his story, he's so fascinating because he's such a student of the Sith and his collection of not only things and relics but people and his experiments. He's very highly intelligent. I mean, of course, calculating. I like his brand of business versus, let's say, Palpatine's politic. Palpatine has that fucking, prissy ass politic to him, which it's what
It's like
he
a
needs to.
nobility.
It's the facade he needs to put on to do what he does. And
It's
I
a good
get it.
point. You're right because he's a banker. His people,
Right.
the Munes or whatever they're called, they're like a banking people.
Yeah, the banking clan.
So it's almost like you have somebody that's a merchant or whatever you want to call it, a banker,
A
using money
businessman.
and commerce, whereas Palpatine is more politics,
He
and that's
wields
all by
politics.
Plagueis' design. I mean,
True. I mean, the fact that
Plagueis picks him.
I couldn't even go on, like, if you read it, you know what I mean by his amazing foresight and ability to uh you know pick people and maneuver. His maneuverability and his chess playing type strategy is it's great. And of course, it's all very calculated in a way that always benefits him. Except I haven't gotten to the end, but I can picture how it goes. Palpatine's jealousy, his envy, and his wanting to know if he's truly more powerful just will never go away. So you can see where it's going. But I thought there's so much interest, so many interesting things. Palpatine killing his family.
Oh,
You
so you
know,
got up to that part.
that was in the early part, to be honest. That was very early on.
Yeah.
He, you know,
Because Palpatine's dad never liked him.
Higo flaunts his relationship with Palpatine in front of Palpatine's father. Palpatine's father is very against it. Tries to send Palpatine away, and in that moment, Palpatine snaps and chooses. He's basically told by Higo that he's going to have to make a choice, and that's when it happens. He kills his father, and he kills his mother, and his sister, and his brother, and all the guards, everybody. And it's just like, damn, Palpatine is such a fucked up character.
Palpatine's
All
really
of
good
the
at like freaking just
You also I have an admiration, or it's just good to know more about him and his training and what he comes from,
yeah.
because it just helps inform the character and make everything make more sense.
Look,
And he
I love a
also
character that's just evil. You know what I mean?
right,
Like Game of Thrones and some other, where they have like characters that are you hate and you love and have good sides and bad sides. I do love, gray characters or whatever. And I love characters that are just straight up evil,
black,
but it's always good to know like how this happened. Like, oh, there's
right?
just this guy Palpatine that just wants to be evil and control the world. Like, why? What happened to make
What
him this
motivated
way?
this? Right?
Um,
How did he get in this position? Because if you go from episode one, you're like, how is this guy even in this spot? You don't, he's just this politician under the radar. You don't know how all the pieces got to where they where they got, but yeah, this so well written, it's so well voice acted. I couldn't recommend the audiobook enough.
Higo
The
Damask.
Hugo Damask of Damask Holdings.
Damask Holdings is looking to shore up our alliances in the Outer Rim.
So yeah, and it's a really great look at the dark side. It's a great look at the Sith. I
How
love the
it
history of the
works.
Sith, Bane, yeah, their views and the clear like the fact that they're right, like, and it's interesting in the Plagueis book how Plagueis not only he gets into the ethereal part of the Force. He doesn't just manifest the physical parts of it. He gets into manipulating the Force with his will, even to the point where him and Palpatine they explain a meditation session where they like express their will upon the Force to, I guess, push the dark side over the, I don't know, top. And it said, and it's like the will of the Force is, if that's allowed, like they were almost expecting to be attacked back by the midichlorians, because the midichlorians are like this physical manifestation of the Force. So anyway, they're just talking about this like deep shit. They're just getting really deep into how the Force works and how it can be manipulated. The old Sith and the
Well,
old
and studying
Republic.
life and death is another big
Yes,
part of it. Is the whole
living for
molecular thing of like a soul leaving the body. Because one of the things that
yeah,
Plagueis does, I forget exactly how it happens. I think you said an assassin. I read the books like 5 years ago, but assassin I think attacks him, and he pretty much instead of killing him, he'll like do these studies where he just like
keeps
prolongs and
them
draws out their death, and he like studies
terrible.
the I guess the midichlorians in the air or whatever the fuck, and
Right.
that's how he's learning. And it's all culminating because if you remember, the whole way that Plagueis was introduced was Palpatine pulls Anakin aside at the theater and he's, oh, have you ever heard the story of Darth Plagueis the Wise? Oh,
Wise,
yeah,
yeah.
I wouldn't think the Jedi would tell you, but hey, he could create life and prevent the ones you love from dying. Meanwhile, he's putting these nightmares in Anakin's head that Padme's gonna die.
Yep.
So he's just manipulating, and
And
this just really helps set the stage for all of that. He did such a good job at. Highly recommend the book. What is it called? I'm gonna look it up. It's called Star Wars Darth Plagueis
oh
by
yeah,
James Luceno.
okay, that's who wrote it.
James
Yeah, that
Luceno.
a lot of fun. You get other point of views of other characters, some older huts,
Yeah, there's
some you get
some hut action going on there.
right. You got Jabba talking with Plagueis directly. You
And hey,
get everybody, like you see. Also, really good relationship in there is, and from the dungeon brought it up before. He said Count Dooku sympathizer. Count Dooku and Palpatine's relationship, the beginnings of that, and Count Dooku's view of the Jedi Council at the time. So it's like, yeah, really enjoying it. Highly recommend. And I would say every one of the Star Wars books, the Bane ones, those have been
oh, the
those are
Bane stories are
sick.
also
So
great.
that's old. That's old Republic shit. That is like
Right.
old Sith, old powers. Like things that we, you know,
You learn about the rule of
things that
two.
faded. The rule of two being created, and Plagueis, it's kind of the play. I don't know when the books were released, or I don't know that
It's all
timeline,
like
but
90s or stuff like that. The thing too, one of the prevalent themes in all these things, and with the dark side that always kinds of fucks them over, is there's always this idea of like becoming invincible.
yes,
Palpatine is immortality. That's really what it is
absolutely.
immortality. Um, yeah,
Which helps informs the new which would help inform the trilogy. We always do make fun of, and everybody points out, how did Palpatine come back, and all this shit in those books back. There's a lot of precedent established for like transference of your soul, like Sith putting their being into objects, and then when someone touches the object, they're possessed by, and Plagueis says, I don't want to live forever as some ghost in between worlds. I want to be me in my body. I can prevent my cells from degenerating. And it's even, I'm at the point in the book where he says he basically figured out how to do it. And then he said he figured out he wanted to create life through the force. And he said that he like put himself out into the force and was like waiting for a response or something, and but like didn't quite get what he thought. And I'm like, oh man, they're definitely
That's how he
pointing
ends
at
up
like
that's how he ends up
the birth
getting
of
Anakin.
Anakin.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the birth of Anakin, and I'm sure they're gonna get to that point in the book.
Well, the
Um,
question was always too, because keep in mind the Plagueis book isn't canon.
right, of
Should
course,
be,
yeah.
but it's not.
I think they'll
Um,
get there.
the question was always, did Palpatine create Anakin, or
I don't
did
know, man.
Plagueis create Anakin? I was always under
I
the
think it's
impression that
Plagueis.
Palpatine learned Plagueis's abilities and then created Anakin to manipulate. That was always kind of my mindset. Was he actually created him divine? Because if you remember, Shmi says he doesn't have a father, so we know that he
Right,
was created by something.
the Force.
Um, the
He's born of
Force,
the Force, and it's
right?
just yeah, it's all very clear. And if you look at the Force in that way, beyond Force pushing, Force jumping, and hovering things, like if you look at it from the full depth of how the Force can work, um, yeah, it just makes the most sense that Anakin is either. I would say the one thing that they highlight in the book is that Plagueis wasn't interested in the texts as much as Palpatine is. Like Palpatine had a real thirst for getting his hands on the texts, and finally Plagueis lets him into his like little dungeon there, and when he sees the books, he's just like he can't wait, and he makes a mention of how like, oh, Plagueis dismisses these things. So I would say that there's
Yeah.
a good chance he learns things that Plagueis didn't. Like he goes even the extra mile because he's just so ambitious to be the one soul Sith forever. Because Plagueis says we ended the rule of two, right? You said, and then
Does he end up saying that to him?
he says we ended the rule of two because it's going to be me and you forever until we decide not to rule anymore. That's what Plagueis positions to Palpatine.
Hmm.
In the
So he
in
was
like the
still
last
allowing him to be a part of his vision. Because calling
right,
back to when we discussed the Bane books, um, the whole idea in the Bane books is that Darth Bane, you get the whole story of this kid who was the son of like this abusive coal mining father,
fucking minor, yeah,
and the story is told so great, and he would always call him
drunken,
my Bane, and he would just drink, and he
eat
also
him.
worked in this mine, and everybody that's on this planet in this mine just turns gray from working, and breathing in all the shit, and he ends up like manifesting, like he's just laying in bed praying for his father to die, and then like it happens. His father dies, and it's like he
Remember,
killed his father through the
right?
force by just like charging up, and he goes to this military, and some shit goes down, and it ends up being that there's a whole Sith academy and Sith army. There's not
Right.
just Darth Maul and Darth Sidious, or Vader and
No,
Sidious. It's not just two. You
it's
have
a
like a
full blown
whole
army.
organization, in place of an empire, you have the Republic. So you have just an army of Sith,
Sith.
or Sith
Then you have
lords,
the old
or
Republic
dark
and the other
side
Jedi.
users, or whatever you want to call them. And what they end up finding out is, then they're allowing some of the weaker ones to live, and there's a lot more backstabbing and just bullshit, and they end up being the downfall of one another. And so Bane does a bunch of shit and pretty much kills all of them. And I don't remember if he created the rule of two or if he learned of the rule of two and brought it back. I kind of forget, because
Okay.
I feel like it's falsely accredited that he created the rule of two. I think the rule of two was already an ancient concept that he revived.
And it just kept growing and growing beyond what it was supposed to be.
They moved away from it. They were like, no, that's stupid. Like let's actually train and help each other and become even stronger. We need an army to fight these guys. Exactly. We need to fight openly against the Jedi, and they would have full blown wars of Jedi versus Sith.
Ships, fucking, they would be using the Force to try to like crash the ships and
but the problem,
the battle and shit.
Exactly, and the problem for Bane though was that there was so much politicking and people that were just like petty and backstabbing that would personally try to fuck him over because they didn't like, the way that he thought, and like he's a troublemaker, and he's just like fuck all of them, and they're keeping me down, they're keeping us down, and so he reinvokes the rule of two, which is essentially there should always be a Sith Lord, and then like his second
Apprentice.
his apprentice, exactly. And the concept is always that he's going to train the apprentice everything, and it's always going to come to a moment where the apprentice becomes more powerful than the master, and if he challenges him, then the stronger one lives, and that's the will of the forces. You're pretty much like pressure cooking a diamond out of the dark side of the Force.
Ultimate competition, ultimate capitalism.
Darwinism, like accelerating, so that you could become as powerful as you possibly can. And what ends up happening though is Bane becomes a Sith Lord, and he takes an apprentice. I forget the girl's name. And same idea, he trains her up. But what always happens with these Sith Lords, even if they ascribe to the rule of two, is that the one that's the most powerful, whether it be Bane or if it's Palpatine, they always want to become immortal, which goes against the rule of two, because if you're immortal, now I can't like defeat that. You. So where do I fit into all of this? If you're immortal, then if we're doing a rule of two, like you're a liar, right? So that's
I'm always your apprentice. This is bullshit.
It's like it's snake bit. The dark side, the way of the Force is it's always kind of snake bit. What makes them become so powerful is also what is ultimately their downfall. And so we're at a really good point, between Mando, all the stuff that's canon, but I can't say enough to the people out there that haven't done any of these prequel books. Like you're really missing out on some of the richer things. And I love that they're using this stuff as source material. Like I said, it's a testament to how solid of a character Thrawn is, that even though he's not canon, they're bringing him back and building him up. And maybe they'll even make a better story for him. Who knows? What else? Anything Star Wars that we didn't cover today?
Well, I mean, some of the more recently announced things. There's some stuff, some shows, and some things I haven't looked into a lot. The Acolyte, all these other things. But I would say the biggest announcements are that there is going to be another trilogy movie release, and it's going to be a continuation. And Rey is going to be found, I think, 15 years after the ninth movie, and she's trying to rebuild the Jedi Order. According to the books and the texts that she discovered. That's kind of all they announced. But it's tough to say because those movies were not well received necessarily. I don't know what some of them got good ratings, but I would say the fandom itself generally seems to reject some of the things that happen in the movie. But it looks like they're using everything that we're talking about to inform that trilogy to try to help make it better. I would say Bad Batch included in all this is one of those things they're trying to use to help inform the trilogy. And now with the continuation, do they use what we're seeing now to set up something for later? You know, it's kind of far off. It's hard to. I don't always have a good handle on the timeline. I got to be honest. I don't know how far from the fall of the Empire we are. You can base it off of like Luke, basically. All right, Luke's appearance. It's got to be within like the 5 years after the fall of the Empire. He trains Grogu for a couple of years, so 3, 4, whatever, 5. And like, let's say Rey, the birth of Rey and how old Rey is. Like, where are we? You know, that's what I'm trying to kind of put together in my head. I don't have a good feel for that. I don't know how far the events of Mandalorian and the events of Rey and Kylo are. 20 years?
Pretty far off, because you got to figure Mandalorian Luke is young Luke. It's it's after the fall of the Empire.
Right.
Whereas then you have so many decades pass to the point where with the movies with Rey, Luke is an old man. And then if these new trilogies coming out, that's 15 years after that. So not only is Luke an old man, Luke's a dead old man. So this is way after anybody from I mean, they're all dead now. Everybody except Lando. Lando's still alive. Let's see what he's doing. But whether Mando is still alive will be another story, because Mando's like the same age as Luke. So
yeah, I would say I don't expect like that. I don't expect anything of that nature.
I don't think they're gonna cross over those things. I think they got enough crossover going on in this current timeline.
It's true.
And I mean, the other thing to keep in mind too is with the Mandalorians, and there's always the possibility that at any point, fucking Luke could pop up. Or, it's definitely hard to keep track of it all.
I wouldn't leave it out. I would just say that's a trick you don't pull out.
I don't think they're gonna do that. I think if anybody's gonna come to the save last second, it'll be
Ahsoka.
Not even that the New Republic Starship guy. I don't know what his name is. Red whatever. He's the one that's he's the one that always is like crossing paths with Mando, and then like they don't attack each other. He's the one that pretty much is. So a whole nother backstory, Amanda, going back to Mando, is that girl that's like an Imperial that is, I guess, beholden to Moff Gideon, the spy. Right. They wiped out that scientist's mind. They pretty much scrambled his brains. Yep. What's her whole deal? What is she doing? But if you remember, there's that what the hell is his name? He's like from the originals too. He's like the older, I think he's Asian, like starship guy. He's X-Wing like, you're gonna regret not getting involved in this. If you remember, he's like, there's some shit going on out there, and we gotta pay attention because you're gonna regret it if we don't. And he even tells the spy girl to her face, he's like, yeah, I don't trust you, bitch. For 1 second.
Right.
Whatever.
Right. That's true. That's true. It is looming out there. There's definitely a force out there that could back up the Mandalorians, that could at least fight off whatever this First Order, the remnants of the Empire, beginnings of the First Order are.
I don't know what we call it right now. If it's still the Empire, if we'd call it the First Order. I mean,
the Empire's fallen. Anything without Palpatine is no longer the Empire. In my mind, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. I mean, at this point, Palpatine right now is in some clone tank somewhere. He's not dead. He's on Exegol or whatever.
It's very true. So yeah, I guess it would be. It is the Empire. It's still the continuation of the Sith Empire. That's truly what it is. It was the Sith Empire, and as long as that continues, I don't know if. I'm also thinking now, did Palpatine take on any apprentices before? He had Darth Vader, but him and Darth Vader were always at odds.
It was just Vader, and then he had Snoke, which was one of his strand casts. So it was like I guess a shitty clone of him. uh, that he was pretty much using, and everybody was just beholden to Snoke. I don't know. It gets so muddy to follow sometimes.
I'm telling you that those three recent movies really do throw like quite a.
It's just there's so many
From what we
timelines.
know, yeah, and it's tough because now I feel like they're steering back to the lore and the established lore more than like, hey, we're just gonna write some random shit
Hollywood
here.
bullshit. Yeah.
Yeah. To be fair, like Filoni and them weren't involved in those movies.
Right. From the Dungeness, will Finn be in the new movies? I feel
He's
like they'll
no,
bring him back.
no, he'll be fuck that. He's not gonna do it unless
John
they offer him a
Boyega was
boatload of
very
money.
vocally against them. He said, I'll never do it
Yeah.
again or whatever. But I feel like knowing them, they're going to be like,
We need to do
hey,
it to,
we're
yeah.
sorry. We know we've kind of fucked up your story. We want to
We're
help.
gonna make you a Jedi.
We're going to make you, yeah, we'll, and they'll give him a lot of money. And I feel like, he has to come back. You know what I mean? There's a lot of stuff that's going to come back, I think. I
Yeah,
called it,
it's
by
gonna
the
be-
way.
we'll
I
see.
fucking called it. I said that there was gonna be another trilogy and that Rey was gonna be in it, and it's probably on an episode somewhere. And everybody said no, 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 they'll never do that again. No, I knew it. I knew they weren't
I
gonna
would
let this
never
shit
say
be.
no. I would never say no to another trilogy of movies. I would just say that. So from the announcement, it said that she'll be in one of the movies. Rey's gonna be in one of the movies. So we'll fucking see, man. It's risky business. I don't think they have who's attached, who's directing, who's writing. That shit is like, if it isn't Dave Filoni, I'm already nervous. I gotta be fucking real honest there. That would frighten me in a way. I'd be like,
There's other good people that could tell good stories.
I don't mean writing, directing, or any of that. I just mean like overseeing. Like I know he's the creative head at this point.
Right.
They
He's
appointed
somebody
him,
we
like,
can trust because he hasn't fucked up yet.
right. So I would just, I would. That's what I would emphasize. If he's involved, I have more trust.
What's with his cowboy hat? Because he's like from like Pennsylvania or something.
Who's that? Fucking Dave Filoni?
Yeah, he's always got the cowboy
just
hat.
one of those guys.
I figured he was like somebody from Texas or
Rob's
something.
dad loves a fucking cowboy hat. What do you mean?
Yeah,
trying
that's
to say?
true. Well, he loves cowboys and stuff. Maybe Filoni does.
Yeah.
Obviously, Filoni does too, because
Filoni-
Mandalorian is pretty much a cowboy story, or like an old
I'm
western.
curious if it's something he picked up when he was on the ranch, because when he worked with Lucas, he was out there like on Lucas's ranch.
Oh
So,
yeah, maybe that's
kind of
it.
thinking like maybe he picked up the cowboy hat up there. I don't know.
Yeah, possibly.
But he's a true fan. He's a guy that's like legit. He read Heir to the Empire when it came out. Before he ever thought he would ever be near George Lucas. He's one of us. He says, he's like, I know I'm one of you. Like, more than anything, I hear you and I see you, because I really, if I wasn't, he said at Celebration, if I wasn't sitting here, I would be right there looking up here. So, that's why I think he's got that credibility, and obviously the credibility comes from the work, but he's established himself through the Clone Wars, which is kind of dismissed or not watched by all Star Wars fans, to be fair. He did Rebels. Now Mando's like the big thing.
I plan on
wow.
watching Rebels. I will watch
Rebels
that.
is
I hate the animation style, but I'll get over that. Some of the comments here, Hell said, with regard to them bringing Finn back, he said, "Listen, Finn, you do 2 more movies and we'll put you in the MCU." Hey,
Yeah, listen, that's the power they wield.
It is. They definitely have some bargaining power. And then From the Dungeon says, as long as Rey is in it, it's going to be garbage. I disagree. I didn't think that Daisy Ridley or Rey didn't live up to what she was. I think she played her part.
Potential. There was potential.
There was potential.
There was potential in the movies, and they just didn't have a clear objective. They didn't know what they wanted to do, so they did it as they went. They just kind of like, oh, we'll do this, and we'll hire Ryan Johnson. And then Ryan Johnson's great. He's great. Does great movies, great shit. But like, is he great for Star Wars? Is he great to make this coherent arc? I don't know. Lucas didn't direct the first 3 movies himself. He had someone come in for Empire. So it's not that you can't not have different directors, but there's no vision, there's no clear, hey, this is what we need to tell over this arc. It was very like shotgun. We're just gonna let's bring Palpatine back. No one knows why or how.
I had no
We won't.
problem with that. I
We won't
And that
inform
wasn't
you.
Ryan Johnson. That was
No,
J.J.
it wasn't.
Abrams, right? I
Yeah,
think that
yeah.
was them. I felt like
And
Abrams did a good job saving it. That was the other thing too. Is I compared to where they could have gone with it, I was
I will
totally fine
say,
with Palpatine coming back.
visually great. There's a lot of
Oh, he looked.
a lot of excellent scenes, and like, of course, the fighting scene in the throne room is one of the best like single shot whatever's. Um, the fucking when the captain of the ship takes the ship light speed through all the carriers, like that fucking sonic boom through space, and she just destroys all those capital ships. I don't know, I don't know if you remember that. That was in I think the third one too.
Yeah.
She. So that was visually the movies had a lot of scenes that were like wow, but
Well,
other than
so
that, like,
from the dungeon said, and it's funny. I was actually thinking about this in
horrible.
the
Yeah,
shower. I was thinking about it in the shower yesterday for some reason, but
fucking Leia didn't
said
even
all the
hug
Princess
Chewie.
Leia scenes when she's flying through space.
Ugh.
Well, I didn't hate that. I mean, granted, they did the same thing in Guardians of the Galaxy, where he like flies through the vacuum of space. But I'm okay with them creating some new Force abilities. I feel like if the use of the Force is the same, like 6 magic powers, like I'm okay with them coming up with some new things. Flying and
I mean,
surviving a vacuum of
from
space wasn't so bad, but
it's
the
not the
visualization of it all was just
it's
so
fucking Mary Poppins. It's like it just
yeah.
doesn't communicate to the audience well, where it's like, oh, that was cool. It wasn't a cool use of the Force where she looked awesome doing it, or
It seemed like
and all the times you
contrived.
could let Leia fucking use the Force in all the books and all the lore of Leia and all the things that she can do and her potential. That's what they chose to show off. It was like, what the fuck, There's a lot of that. So there's definitely a lot of what the fuck moments in those movies. We fucking talked about it ad nauseum. So yeah,
To that point too, for the dungeon there, they might have been limited with her, being that Carrie Fisher passed away, and they finished the movie like
I
with
mean,
her face. So
all they
it
needed
doesn't
to
excuse
do,
the scenes she was in that
all
were
they
bad.
needed to, one bare minimum requirement. If you were writing, like, let's say it's fucking, I don't know, 2010, and you're just with a group of Star Wars fans, and you're like, guys, we're gonna make a checklist for every thing you would want in the upcoming trilogy. All right, so one, we want badass Luke Skywalker, fucking kicking ass, doing some cool shit. We want Luke, Han, and Leia in the same room at the same fucking time. If we can only have it one more time, because the actors are gonna die, they're 70 years old. Who knows what's gonna happen? And they didn't make the checklist of what Dave Filoni says. I'm one of you, and I'm a fan. You would make to be like, I want to see this on film before we can't do it ever again. And they missed it. They fumbled it, and it strikes deep at the heart of like Star Wars fans. They fucking grew up with those movies. They love those guys. Mark Hamill is Luke Skywalker forever and ever, no matter what he plays, does. He's like the most popular guy on Twitter. He's Luke, he's Luke Skywalker, and he could speak truth to power because people believe in his character, even more than him as a person anyway. But yeah, they missed that opportunity. So those movies offend Star Wars fans for reasons beyond, oh, it looks cool and some of the stuff is neat. Like, yeah, great. It looks like Star Wars, feels like Star Wars, but at the meat of it, you're like, what the fuck? Why didn't you do? There's so many missed opportunities. So yeah, that's my
Definitely
opinion
a
of
lot
that.
of missed opportunities, but not everything was horrible.
I'm not
And there
gonna
was a
say
couple
like
of good things that came out of it.
to say, oh, I'll never watch Star Wars again. I'll never. It's such bullshit. We've been
Yeah.
through this. You told me about Game of Thrones, and
I think this next trilogy that they're gonna do is going to make the third trilogy that everybody hated more palatable, because they're gonna add this context. I mean, because everybody hated the prequel trilogies. Everybody hated them. There's videos on YouTube of like 3-hour breakdowns of why the movie sucked. And
adults and adults too. Like you always got to look. It's for the kids. Let it go.
yeah, there's always
It's
going to
not
be a
for
part of
you.
it that's for the kids. There's going to be something for everybody, but they
Right.
always have to find something to appeal to the kids. And I don't know, everybody just wants to be the smartest person in the room, and nobody wants to suspend their disbelief to a point where it's like, I don't know, everybody just wants to, I think, overthink and not be made a
Everybody wants
fool
to be
of.
happy.
Yeah.
Well,
But I
we can
think
go deep.
with Mando and everything that we've been seeing
There's
on
hope.
Disney Plus
There's hope.
lately,
Yeah,
there's
hope.
there's plenty of hope for that stuff. So
Listen, Return
uh
of the Jedi. There's hope. We can believe in Dave Filoni and John Favreau,
dude,
and
now that I know that they're bringing Thrawn, I have a lot of hope. And
we're excited. I think this fucking Wednesday is going to be a good one.
yeah, so we'll be back with our reactions for that. But before so we'll put an end to the Mando talk. I did want to
We'll
mention
put
before
Star
we
Wars to
go,
bed. I brought
putting
it up.
Star
I
Wars to
said it.
bed.
I
Nice warm
segued.
cup of milk.
Game of Thrones. House of
Yes.
Dragon.
So
Now what?
now we've heard that they're going to be doing, HBO has greenlit a new show about Sir Duncan the Tall and Aegon the Fifth, which are known as the Dunk and Egg books.
Tales of Dunk and Egg, the Hedge Knight.
Yes, so phenomenal.
Novellas,
right now there's
short
stories. Originally, these
short.
stories were told in like compilation books. So
Yep.
like you would have to
And then they
buy
made
this
one.
book with like, I don't know, like 30 short stories in it, and one of the short stories was the story of I'm just trying to find the book here. Now they sell it together in one book called The Night of the Seven Kingdoms. So
Right.
again, if you want a good book to purchase or listen to that is in the Game of Thrones or A Song of Ice and Fire universe, but on a different timeline, they take place about 100 years before.
If you'd like to be in between House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones.
Yes, this is a couple of generations after House of the Dragons.
So
House of Dragon.
Give me context. Aegon the Fifth would be a descendant of.
Well, I don't want to. We don't want to talk about what happens in House of the Dragon. I could tell you, but I'm not going to spoil House of the Dragon for you people. But yes, Aegon. So really, the story is about a hedge knight named Sir Duncan the Tall, who's like a kid. He's like, I don't even know. He's younger than 20. Yeah, like 19-ish. He is just an inch shy of 7 foot the last time he was measured, so he might even be bigger than 7 foot. But he's a very tall guy. And the story starts with him. He's already on his own. He was originally a squire to I forget his name, Roger Pennytree. He was a squire to some old man who was a hedge knight. A hedge knight is, for those who don't know, is a knight who doesn't really have anything. Like normally a knight has, maybe at least like a castle or a fort, or comes from, a royal family. He was a kid that was growing up in Flea Bottom, which is King's Landing. This guy took him under his wing, saw potential in him. They were kind of poor, but they were knights, and he taught him how to be chivalrous and how to be a good person and whatnot. And the story starts with Sir Duncan. He's kind of making out on his own now because Sir Roger Pennytree just died. He apparently knighted him before he died. And he goes to like an inn and somehow comes across some kid who like just like wants to follow him. At first they're like just bickering with each other, and then the kid kind of like asks like, "Hey, let me follow you, let me be your squire." And he's like, "No," but the kid comes anyway, and he's like, "All right, fine, whatever, but if you want to be my squire, you got to learn your place, and I'm the one in control," and yada yada yada, just kind of setting the stage. And he's on his way to a tourney, and just a bunch of shit unfolds. I don't really want to spoil anything, but this little kid is actually a Targaryen prince named Aegon. He lies and says his name is Egg. Sir Duncan doesn't know that he's a Targaryen prince when he takes him, as a squire. But it's a really good story just about the travels of this hedge knight and his squire, who is a prince, and kind of really good characters. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how to tell the story without spoiling too much.
Well, the gist is we already know that he is
The kid eventually
he
becomes
and
a king.
Aegon. Yeah, he and Aegon
Grow
partner
up.
up. They kind of grow up together because Aegon's a child who likes to leave the castle and shave his head so no one knows
He's
he's a
very
Targaryen.
low down on the line of succession. So
He
this
is
kid Egg is
the
the fourth son
brother
of a fourth
of,
son.
and he is also the brother of someone we know.
Yes, Maester Aemon from Game of
Maester-
Thrones.
Right. This is
He is
Maester Aemon's brother,
younger brother.
Egg.
Yes.
And he was so Maester Aemon was supposed to be the king, and decides that he did not want the throne.
Not exactly.
Okay.
The whole idea
all
is that Egg is very low on the line of succession because Egg's father, Maekar, is a fourth born son. So his father is already not likely to
line.
become, he's already down the line. But
Right.
as you'll learn through the stories, a couple of those people ahead of him die. So his father raises in a line of succession. And then Egg is also a fourth born son of that guy. So you figure there's like at least 8
He's
people
far
ahead of
removed.
him.
He never thinks he's ever touching
Super
the
far
throne.
removed,
It's like
and
never happening.
that's why it's kind of like. And the thing is too. So Egg's brothers, one of them is Maester Aemon, so he goes to the Citadel, so he's kind of out of the picture. His other brother Arion is a little piece of shit. He's actually a huge piece of shit, and he's like the main bad guy in the first book.
Nice.
I forget the other brother older than him is like a drunk. So there's characters here. They do a really good job telling stories, and they're short stories too. Each one of the stories, if you did the audiobooks, are like 3 hours.
Yeah, I feel like they could go a couple directions with the story. Because it seems like with the novellas, it's like they had a lot of tales together. There's lots of stories of
Yes.
Dunk and Egg traveling.
They're kind of meant to
going
be pick up
abroad.
and go stories because they've had several different things, and even between each of the 3 stories, there's a couple of years between them.
It's perfect content because then they can change actors. They can grow act. You know what I mean? They could probably play with this a little more because it's not as stringent as like Game of Thrones, and they could probably have a little more leeway.
There's some things that definitely happen, but there's a lot of stories that they could tell in between. I did also want to mention that Sir Duncan the Tall, apparently they've confirmed this somewhere. I think George R.R. Martin confirmed it. But Brienne of Tarth is actually a descendant of Sir Duncan the Tall, apparently.
Oh, that's great. I
yes,
love that.
so that's why she's so big. And it's funny, too, because if you read the Game of Thrones books, the Brienne chapters, her like point of view and stuff like that, her and Sir Duncan are very similar.
Right. And quiet. He's quiet. He's very reserved, right? He's not a very
chivalrous.
outspoken.
He's a good guy. And
he stands up to bullies in like a bar. Like he
stands up to bullies. I mean, really, the story. I'll just tell it. The plot really is Sir Duncan and Egg get together, and then Egg's older brother Arion, who I said is a piece of shit, he like starts beating up this girl, and Sir Duncan. Sir Duncan had a crush on this girl. She was painting his shield. She was like some puppet master. She was about as tall as he was, whatever. But Sir Duncan fucking just Egg comes running to him. He's like, "You gotta help!" And then Sir Duncan runs in and like pretty much like beats Egg's older brother's ass. But then all of his guards and everything get him, and then it's you just struck a prince. That now we have to cut off the hand that you struck him with, and you kicked him, so we're gonna cut off your foot, and also you broke some of his teeth, so we're gonna rip your teeth out.
I do remember that.
And then Egg that's when Egg reveals himself as, hold on, don't do that, and he reveals himself as a prince, and
Targaryen.
There's this whole trial by combat that has to happen, pretty much.
Yeah. Yes.
So.
That's in the first book too. That's just like the opening.
That's just the first book. The second story is about a squabble between some lords over water, pretty much. And then the third book actually has to do with the Blackfire Rebellion. This is after the Blackfire Rebellion, which is another story that they're going to tell at some point. And there's like it's a potential rebellion building up. So there's some really good stories there. If you want to read those books. Or hear it on Audible. It's called the Night of the Seven Kingdoms.
I don't think we're gonna see that shit for like 3 years.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be a while until we see anything, but
I
really
wonder if
good
they're
stories.
still working on the Jon Snow thing.
Been kind of quiet on that front. I do hope that there's
They are. I want to say they finished film. No, they're gonna start filming House of the Dragon like soon, like now. I think that's like either in progress
Well,
or
House of the
happening.
Dragon, yeah, I think is in progress as we speak. So we have we have Peter Griffin has joined the chat here and tying together what we've been discussing today between the Mandalorian and now the Song of Ice and Fire. He's saying, "Do you think Din will have to stab Bo Katan with the darksaber in a similar parallel to Jon stabbing Daenerys?" I don't think so. I don't think, but I think
No,
they're
because
aligned.
They won't fucking ruin the fucking show like they
Yeah,
did in
yeah, they won't.
fucking Game of Thrones. Damn it.
sorry, what? I just want to complain about one thing since you're bringing up HBO and Game of Thrones, and you know it's not called HBO anymore, and that doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah, they're calling it Max.
Max, the fuck does who does that? What is that?
Well, it's
Anyway.
like, the Peacock,
Nope, nope,
Netflix,
no,
HBO
nope. HBO,
Go, HBO Max.
HBO Plus, HBO, anything HBO. You spend 30 years fucking more building the brand, and then you just Time Warner just fucking disposes
But
of
they're
it.
still gonna kind of call it HBO, right?
If
Like
they
they're
get
still
rid
gonna
of the
do the
fucking, I'm gonna
oh, they
fucking,
won't do that.
they raised the price. It's like $240 a year now. It's like $20 a month for 4K.
Well, it's
Or
also it's like
sucks.
Discovery. It's
Yeah, it'll include all the Discovery Channel shit.
which is a pretty big conglomerate. They own
Oh yeah,
several networks. I think like Nat Geo even too. I mean, my mindset is if
no,
they
Nat
get some
Geo's
nice like nature documentaries on there, like I might, that would be pretty cool.
HBO Max, whatever it is now, terrible. It's terrible, in my opinion.
The app,
Works terribly. Yeah, works
but it's not as
terribly.
good as HBO Go was. That's for sure.
It's not good at all. It's the discoverability sucks. The navigation sucks, and I just hope
The color
they
sucks.
really
That
fucking
ugly
fix
purple.
that shit. Oh god, the purple. Now
Well,
they're gonna get
everybody's trying to claim a
blue.
color because Netflix is red and Hulu's green and
I got all
Disney I
the
think is
primary
blue
colors.
and so they're like, all right, we got to get purple, guys. Let's get on purple.
HBO should be HBO.
Hey,
Fucking
you know what?
dicks.
Whatever. They've been putting on good TV, so as long as I continue to get the shows that I love and new shows,
I still have to watch White Lotus season 2.
good show.
Secession's been good too. I do recommend Secession.
What's that?
You ever watch Secession?
Never
We're way off
watched
the rails,
Session.
but whatever.
Yeah, that's an
Secession,
Apple TV.
you should watch
right?
it. No, Secession's on HBO. You should watch it. You might like it.
Hmm.
It's a fucking
It's
like
a
intrigue.
familial.
It's it's like it's almost like following Rupert Murdoch's family or some shit. It's kind of like a cross between Rupert Murdoch's family fucking situation and somebody else's similar kind of situation with their family business. So yeah, you get a lot of that like real wealthy dynamic and all that bullshit. Anyway, it's pretty good. They tried to say that the latest episode was as good as Sopranos. I said you need to back the fuck up. Sopranos came out 20 years ago and is still possibly the best thing to ever come out on TV. So yeah, you should hold on when you try to say, "Oh, this most recent episode was better than Sopranos." Nah, wrong. I watched it. It was good. Wasn't anywhere near Sopranos. Not even with like the shock or like not at all.
No, everybody's always gonna try to draw that
I know.
comparison, and
Check
they're
them
always
until I'm
gonna fall
fucking-
short, because that's
It's a
like,
good way to lead an article or a YouTube video clip. with
yeah,
that
that'll get
title.
people's eyeballs for sure.
Yeah, that's what it's all about now, unfortunately.
Well, we're
So-
sorry that we missed 2 Friday night streams, but we do expect and hope to be back for Friday. We might
All
be
of us.
down, all of us, unless Joe's still sick. But he was hit with the plague, so we are looking forward to the 4 of us being back together again. We will
Oh,
be
yeah.
discussing. So this is this coming Friday at hopefully 8, maybe 9. We'll see what happens. PM. We will be live. We hope all of you guys. Oh, look at that, Joe's here. Joe mentions as they're signing off, yeah, did we watch the Dusty doc? No, me and Vin were talking about that. Originally, we were going to be talking about the Dusty Rhodes documentary that was on A&E, and we did not see
Haven't
that
watched
yet.
it. I didn't
So
watch it yet. Yeah.
we'll watch that after this, but we do want to talk about that at some point. We'll give our reaction to the Dusty Rhodes documentary next Friday. We'll also be talking about the Mandalorian season finale. So we're definitely looking forward to that and whatever else is going on. Maybe there'll be something going on in the wrestling world. Who knows? But we love you guys. We appreciate all you guys for being here. You guys being here with us live helps the show. You help from the dungeon. You did God's work today, like I said. Giving us the names that we can never remember. So having you guys
Filling in the
here,
gaps.
you're as much of a part of the show as we are. So yeah, tell your friends, sign on live, drop some stuff in the comments, and we look forward to seeing you guys on Friday. Godspeed.
Peace out, everybody.